I'm Abby. I am a photographic artist. I usually work in galleries, and I've got an exhibition on at the moment at Satellite Gallery, which opened last night and runs for 3 weeks. But I decided today to talk about a completely different body of work, a body of work I did not for exhibition, but simply for myself. So, here we go. In October 2008, I did an artist residency in Berlin, in the suburb of Friedrichshain. This is a photograph of the river Spree and the neighbouring suburb of Kreuzberg. Where I took the photograph was where the wall stood up until 1989. Friedrichshain, where I was living and working, is a really interesting area. It was, after the war, a lot of squatters moved there, and there's still a lot of squatters and artists, as well as a lot of more moneyed people moving in. So it's got a real vibrancy to it, and I was really inspired by the area and by the city. And I wanted to use my residency to do a project that was completely different from the type of work I usually do, to just a sort of development project. I was really fascinated by the area and by the people. I decided to base this project at Warschaustraße S-Bahn station, which is, you see here, a really busy station on the border of the two suburbs. So I made a sign in really imperfect German, which basically says, I would like to take your portrait, it'll take 1 minute of your time, and so on. I set it up against the railing of the train station, set up my sign and tripod, and put a piece of tape on the ground in my preferred location, and basically just waited, took my chances. I thought that no one would be, I sort of thought, no one would be interested, but my expectations were just blown away. I had more than 80 subjects in 5 short sessions. People were really fascinated by the project. This photograph is one of my favourite photographs. This is Endrick. He came the first time I was there, and then he came back every time I was there without fail. Even though it was on random days of the week, he was fascinated by the fact that I came from New Zealand, and he would ask me a lot of questions about New Zealand. However, he didn't have a word of English. I speak imperfect German, and he had a very heavy East Berlin accent, so it was very, very amusing, but very cool. I love the diffuse light of Germany. It's so different from the light here. I took most of the photographs between 11:30 and AM and 2 PM, because that was when you had this really flat, bright light that the subjects really... A lot of people with dogs in Berlin. It's just fantastic. I was researching both the history of street photography and public portraiture, and also the worrying animosity towards street photographers in countries such as Britain. They had a campaign going at the time with billboards saying, report strange-looking photographers. And so I was researching that, as well as most photographers look quite strange. So, as well as the recent secret photography, or the history and recent street photography sort of movement, including Philip Lorca de Corsia, who had recently won a seminal court case taken against him by an unwitting subject of one of his very famous portraits. So I decided I wanted to do a project that was based very much on self-selection and consent by the subject. This is Marcel. Marcel was one of the punks who... There was a group between 5 and sort of 30 punks who would sit just to the left of me, or I sit up to the right of them, more realistically. And they would sit there with their dogs and beg for money. They were really polite, but they were a bit rough with each other. They asked me very strongly at the beginning not to photograph them, and I said I certainly wouldn't if they didn't agree to participate, and Marcel was one of the few who did. But my ideas about self-selection and consent were really strengthened by the fact that people would walk past and very conspicuously photograph these punks, very intrusively, as if they were just a tourist attraction. So, yeah, I was sort of really happy to be doing what I was doing in those circumstances. I wanted to just photograph people as they were at that moment on that day, without them preparing for a portrait, doing their hair or dressing in a special way. Berliners are very relaxed about their appearance, and I really love that about the people. Of course, the irony of self-selection is that, well, as you can see, most of my subjects were young and relatively attractive. I had a few older men, but no women over about the age of 40, unfortunately, decided they wanted their portrait taken. And of course, I then have to select the portraits that you see today. So every subject selected themselves, but inevitably I select the selection. After I'd photographed about 80 people in this spot, I was continuing to photograph Berlin. I wanted to just build up a bigger picture and play with different techniques. I moved down the road a little way to this beautiful old black and white photo booth that was, it was just up the road in the same suburb. And I wanted to photograph people who were choosing to have their photograph taken in the photo booth. So it was a similar sort of idea, but these were a lot less formal. And again, you know, I thought, well, people are going to have their photos taken and go on their way, but I had a lot of people really interested in what I was doing, which was so interesting to me because photography is so ubiquitous now. Every one of these people, perhaps give or take one or two, would have carried a camera in their bag, be it on their phone or having a digital camera. CCTV is ubiquitous in cities, and so most city dwellers are on camera a lot of their day, a lot of their lives. So I really didn't think that it would, in many ways I didn't think it would hold much interest to people anymore. However, I was really happily proved wrong in that. So yeah, this is Nadine, and she was a local East Berliner. She was having her photo taken for an identity card. She was a very practical, straight to the point kind of person, but she was just so fascinated by what I was doing and really happy to give up another 5 minutes of her time, a couple of minutes of her time to have her photo taken. This is a photo of me taking the photo. It was really cold, so that was even more amazing that people gave up their time. And what I found was that even though there was nothing more than my semi-professional looking camera and tripod to say I was a photographer of any merit, people wanted to participate and be involved in a project, and they wanted to have their portrait taken. Thank you.